Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, an entitled neighbor stole my inherited property and built a cabin on my land. He claimed he owns it and I had to take him to court. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. A few years ago, I had inherited a chunk of land from my grandfather after he passed away. I knew that I did not want to move out to the country and live on the land, but it had been in my family for so many years that I could not part with it. I decided to build a cabin and go once a year to take a little vacation on the land. The only weird thing was my grandparents' old neighbor that seemed to be hovering around the week I was there to build my cabin. He kept saying that it was a shame to waste the land and that he would make sure to look after it when I was not around. I thought he was just being nice and not wanting anything bad to happen. For the first year things went fine and I enjoyed going out there a couple times a year to be in my cozy cabin and feel the family. My grandparents were basically the ones who raised me, so even just being on the land made me feel close to them. The problem came out about 2 years after I got the land. I drove down to stay in the cabin for a few days, and when I got there, my cabin was just totally gone. Where it used to stand was now a big house and I had no idea what was going on. I went up and rang the doorbell to be met with a very confused looking man. Man, what are you doing here? Me? That's what I was going to ask you. This is my land and I want to know what the hell is going on. Man, this is not your land. My cousin owns this land. If you try and come back on this property again, I won't ask you to leave so nicely again. I did not want to get in a physical fight with a guy twice my size, so I backed off and sat in my car confused. I saw another one of my grandparents' old neighbors walking around and she waved at me. I thought she was being friendly, but she was actually calling me over. She told me that she had seen everything and invited me inside her place for a meal while she told me the entire story. Apparently, since I was not there to watch over the land, the neighbor decided that he was going to take it over and use it for himself. He had demolished my cabin and built that guest house for when his family came out to visit him. The story that he had been spreading around was that my grandfather was his oldest and dearest friend, and when he died he had left him the land because he knew neighbor would make good use of it. Of course, none of that was true because the land was mine, and while my grandpa was friends with that man, it was not even close to the extent that he made it seem. He got false papers to say the land was his and without me there to stop him, was able to destroy my cabin and take over the land for himself. I was not going to take this sitting down though, and was ready to drive right into town and let them know that he in fact did not own the land and built the house illegally. This neighbor was so nice and told me that if I needed a place to stay while I worked things out, her door was always open. If all neighbors could be as nice as her, then there wouldn't be any problems in the world. It took a few days of talking to people in town and them having to go through records before finding out that the property really did belong to me. The only thing they could really do though was kick out this family from the guest house for trespassing. It was not my house, so I had no right to go in and sleep there. I wanted to prove a point to him that I was not messing around though and had them go kick his family out of his illegal guest home. For the matter of my cabin though, I was going to have to personally sue him. I did not have to think about that for very long before deciding that I was going to make sure he paid for what he tried to do. That land had been in my family for generations, and he thought he could just steal it from under my nose. I was suing him for knocking down my cabin, the cost to remove the house he built and then rebuild my cabin, and the money for the year that he used my land without permission. For a guy that had no real defense, he seemed pretty cocky and told the judge that even though he didn't have papers, he had the word of my grandpa before he died, and that should be good enough. Meanwhile, I came with the actual papers that showed it was my land and the neighbor had no rights to it. He then tried to argue that the land was unkempt and I was never around, so it was legally abandoned. He was doing the town a favor by maintaining the land and making it look presentable. That was also a lie because while I only went out there a couple times a year, I made sure to hire a company that would maintain the land for me. At no point did it look like I had just abandoned the property. It was clear that I was winning this case and it just came down to how much money I was going to get out of the neighbor for what he had done. It would have only been around $150,000, but then I realized something else. In order for him to build the house he did it means that he removed a tree. That tree was extremely old, and unlike some other areas in the world, the trees here are under strict protection. There was no way he would have gotten permission to cut down a perfectly healthy tree. So, in addition to what I was asking for, I went after him for the tree as well. Trees like this one are not that common anymore, so the cost to find and replant another one is crazy. It almost doubled the amount of money that neighbor owed me, and he was angry. Let me tell you, when I saw his illegal house get demolished right in front of my eyes, it was a thing of pure beauty. I could feel him watching from his land, and that just made it all the more satisfying. On paper it seemed like I got a ton of money and would be rich now, but it really was all to get the property back where it had been to. Tearing down a house is not cheap, and I still had to have my cabin rebuilt after that, plus I had to find a healthy spot to plant the new tree. Maybe once it is fully grown, some kid will play on it like I did when I was little. I'm not worried about leaving the land again because neighbor now knows if he tries to mess with me, I'm going to make sure that he suffers the consequences. And yeah, ripe stars, I absolutely loved how the OP in this story showed the neighbor who is boss. People like this should not get away with such illegal actions. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story. Let's continue to the next one. The next one is titled, Karen Called the Cops on Me. For some context, I live in a predominantly Catholic city where most people attend church on a regular basis. I, however, was not raised Catholic or religious really, so I kind of stand out a little bit from most people. This all happened about 2 years ago when I was still in college. My high school was just down the road from a Tim Hortons, and across the road from that is a pretty large church, which was the only one in the neighborhood, I think. On Sunday, I decided to grab a coffee on my way to pick up a textbook for one of my classes. It was about 12, so church had just ended and there was a decently long line up for the Tim Hortons. I had been waiting in line for about 5 minutes when a woman walked up to me and started talking to me. It was a pretty normal conversation, but then she asked why she had not seen me that morning. I was confused since I had literally never spoken to this woman before. She told me that this Tim Hortons belonged to the church, which it actually didn't. I casually explained that I did not attend the church she was talking about, and she gave me a confused stare and muttered an "oh" before walking away. Skip forward to Tuesday, I was once again at that Tim Hortons getting some lunch when the same lady walks up to me and starts to berate me for being at that Tim Hortons again. "I thought I told you this Tim's is for the church only." "Yeah, but it's just a Tim's. Anyone can come in here if they want to, though." "No, this Tim's is not for anyone who doesn't attend the church." "But the next Tim's is like 5 kilometers away." She continues to just yell at me in front of everyone in the Tim Hortons. I was actually just going to leave to get a lunch from my school, and then she dropped the Karen bomb. "If you don't leave the Tim's right now, I'm going to call the police." I decided at that moment to just stand still and let her call the cops if she wants to. About 10 minutes later, 2 officers show up. The Karen tells them that I am disrespecting her, disrespecting God, and disrespecting the church. I tell them that I'm just a hungry teenager trying to get my lunch, but the cops take her side and call both of my parents and my school. My super awesome VP shows up and demands why he got a call from the police about one of his students. The officers tell him what's happening. My VP asks me if it is true, and I tell him that I was just trying to get some lunch. My VP asks the officers what laws I had broken, and they responded with some BS about harassment or something like that. My parents are called in, and my mom tells the cop to frick off and that I didn't do anything wrong. But Karen keeps insisting that I had been harassing her. Then one of the employees chirps in and starts to vouch for me. Eventually the cops leave, and so do my parents. I get my lunch and my VP walks me back to school. I never ran into that lady after that, but I made sure to get lunch from that Tim's as often as I could. And yeah, ripe stars, it seems nowadays you cannot even go to a beloved Canadian donut chain in peace anymore without getting hassled by a Karen. At least here in Thailand, I can still peacefully eat Krispy Kreme donuts, which by the way in my opinion are the best, without getting annoyed by Asian Karens. Anyway, the next one is titled, Cops Threaten to Arrest Me. Being an herpetophile, and by the way guys, I have to say that very wrong and very slowly because of the stupid YouTube algorithm, I used to keep and breed reptiles and amphibians. I don't just know how to take care of lizards and frogs, but I also know how to keep bugs. As if I cannot keep big terrariums in my current home, I am keeping 3 queen ants. They give me the chance to build tiny terrariums and will provide good food for dendrobates in the future if I ever have a chance to keep those frogs again. A Lasius emerginatus I caught 2 years ago, and 2 still unidentified Camponotus queens I caught today while I was out for some grocery shopping. Which is why I almost got arrested. I took a break to smoke a cigarette on a bench near a small park when I spotted 2 ants that looked like wingless queens looking for a nesting site after the nuptial flight. Most species lose the wings right after mating before building a nest. The only thing I had to catch them was the clear plastic wrapping of my cigarette packs. I've bought several packs, which at least in my country is often used also by drug dealers as bags to store doses. So I used 2 of those bags to catch those queens, and as if I had other things to do and I couldn't keep them there for too long, they need to be placed in artificial nests ASAP, I went straight to the pharmacy to buy 2 test tubes for blood and urine samples. They are used as nests for small ant colonies, and some cotton. It's used to create a water storage on the bottom of test tubes and as a cork at the opening of the tube. It prevents the ants of escaping but allows them to breathe. As soon as I got out of the pharmacy, still holding the bags with the ants, the test tubes and the cotton in my hands, I saw 2 cops, C1 and C2, waiting for me. Turned out they saw me walking to the pharmacy with 2 small clear bags in my hands and then got suspicious. C1, hello there, would you mind explaining to us why you just bought cotton and needles? They probably thought that test tube boxes contained syringes. Me, well, the guy that really loves insects, I guess, and I also explained the meaning in details, and a few minutes ago I caught 2 queen ants, perfectly legal here by the way. I needed test tubes and cotton to store them. C2, looking at C1 and laughing, that's the lamest excuse a damn junkie could use. Me, why are you an expert on making up excuses for being a junkie? Yeah, I got pissed off, but cops here are pretty arrogant and often lie on papers to justify illegitimate arrests, so I don't like them at all. C1, oh, so you're a comedian too? Me, no, but considering how many jokes there are about cops, I expected you to have some sense of humor. C2, are you calling us buffoons? Do you want to get charged for insulting officers too, instead than just for possession of drugs? Me, showing them the bags with the drugs. First of all, as you can see, there are not any drugs in those bags. Second, you can also see I did not buy any needles, but 2 test tubes for blood samples, which, along with the 2 queen ants, should prove you I'm not getting ready to get high. Third, feel free to check my backpack and the content of my pockets for anything illegal, while I write my lawyer, and I'm sure she will be happy to come here and assist me if needed. Last but not least, I was not calling you buffoons at all. Buffoons are supposed to have a sense of humor. Luckily, after they checked my backpack and my ID, they went away without pressing charges. I assume threatening to involve a lawyer kept them on the spot, so I got away with no consequences. And the next one is titled, Karen got into serious trouble. So this was back in college at the local Walmart that is known for always being interesting. I have so many stories from this place, I swear this Walmart is like a Karen beacon. This story is a bit chaotic. I try to write it as clearly as I can, but a lot was happening all at once, and while the memory is vivid, it is also quite mashed together. Some relevant info: I am pale and at the time I walked with a cane. I got a condition where my heart rate can get too high and my blood pressure can drop and I can pass out from standing too long usually, but anxiety can bring on episodes too. I wear a headscarf on holidays and special occasions. Now, there are many types and styles of headscarves. On this day I was wearing it in a style where it completely covered my head and then draped around my neck and was secured with pins. I used dressmaking pins. They are not very visible in the scarf, but they don't have anything covering their pointy ends. I make sure I place them so they will hold the fabric in place and not stick me. Since it is a holiday, I'm also wearing traditional clothing, a long skirt, a white shirt with some embroidery on it, and a fabric belt. This also happened right after the 2016 election. This was maybe a few weeks after, where stuff had calmed down a bit, but it was still pretty bad. I made the mistake of going to Walmart alone in traditional clothing. So I'm going around the Walmart picking up a few things, and my backpack is in the front of the cart so I don't have extra weight on me. I am standing at one of those aisle ends and I was trying to find something and had to look up where it was on my phone. Out of nowhere, my headscarf is ripped off my head as someone behind me yells, "Terrorist woman!" Luckily, the scarf only had the end around my neck, so it pulled on my neck but did not full-on choke me. Still, this definitely activated my flight and fight response. The woman, clearly a Karen, then starts screaming as I turn around. Apparently one of the pins had stuck her when she ripped my scarf off. She is screaming that I'm a terrorist, I assaulted her, she wants the manager and the police called, etc. This couple had been down the aisle and saw it happen and ran over. The woman, NW, kind of threw her sweatshirt on my head and got between me and Karen. I was panicking at first but realized she was trying to help cover my head, and the man with her, NM, had also gotten between us and was yelling at the Karen. Then NM grabbed my scarf back and handed it to NW, who handed it to me, and she took her sweatshirt and held it up around my head to sort of block people's view of my head while I tried to get my scarf back on. The Karen is still screaming that she wants the police to arrest me for being a terrorist, for assaulting her, and how dare he. She is digging through her purse to find pepper spray because she wants to spray me and the man. I honestly did not even wrap my scarf properly, I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. A nearby employee had come out of an aisle to see what was happening and ran off to get the manager, I'm assuming. The NM is yelling back at Karen and had confiscated the pepper spray from her. Karen is screaming that I am a traitor to my own race, along with her earlier insults, and is demanding that the NM pin me to the floor so she can pepper spray me and do a citizen's arrest, and keep me there until the police and FBI arrived, since she is adamant I'm a terrorist. So at this point I'm shaking and crying and my heart rate is extremely high, and I know I need to leave or I'm going to pass out. The NW asked if I wanted to leave and I nodded. She grabbed my backpack and the arm that I'm not holding the cane in, and she quickly walks me down the aisle and out of the store. We just left my cart where it was. She asked where my car was and I tried explaining that I'm a college student and have to wait for the bus, but I'm coughing and trying to breathe as my heart rate is well over 180 at this point. NW sees this and explains that she is a nurse and I'm clearly not okay and asks my medical condition and what I need. I explained what it is and that I need to sit and lay down because I'm gonna pass out. She offered me to sit in their van, which usually would obviously be a no, but we are standing in the middle of a parking lot and I'm about to pass out and currently my brain is not getting very much oxygen. She opens this side door and I sit on the edge of the car and promptly faint. I wake up a few minutes later and she is holding my wrist in one hand, checking my pulse and looking at her watch. I mumble something so she knows I'm awake and she just keeps telling me it's okay, I'm doing fine, and after I recover a bit I sit up and realize NM is standing outside the car. I think he was trying to give me privacy. I asked for the Gatorade from my backpack and sip on that, helps with the fainting, while he explains what was going down. He says that the manager showed up with store security and he explained over Karen screaming what happened and handed her pepper spray to the security guy and that the police had been called. I look over and sure enough, there is cop cars pulled to the front of the store. NM asked if I had been hurt, if I wanted to talk to the police. Honestly, I'm scared of police and just wanted to go home, so I declined to talk to the police or press charges. The NM went back inside to talk to the police a bit more and I tried to fix my scarf a little better. I had lost a few pins, though all this, which was kind of annoying, so I could not wrap it how it was earlier. The NW told me my heart rate had been around 200 when I passed out and luckily it had come down again quickly because she had considered calling an ambulance. She lets me know NM is texting her and reads out to me what is going down back in the store. As it turns out, I did not need to press charges. Karen was so infuriated that NM would help a terrorist woman to get away, she got a bit, aggressive. She was yelling at the manager, security, and the police officers when NM came back in. When she saw him, she ripped out her pepper spray. Apparently they were dumb enough to give it back to her and is screaming at him. Cop grabs her arm to stop her, but she tries to pepper spray the cop and then gets taken down and cuffed. NW is positively gleeful as she tells me about Karen getting tackled. Apparently then, Karen started screaming about suing the cops and getting the FBI involved, the classic Karen stuff. I did not get to see Karen get taken off to jail, sadly. My bus pulled up and the NW helped me over to it. Since then, I refuse to go by myself to any store if I'm wearing a headscarf, even though I live in a different area now. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that certainly sounds like a terrible area full of entitled people. That Karen got exactly what she deserved, even though I would have loved to seen her being taken to jail. If you have ever met any crazy people at Walmart or other places like that, then please let us know in the comments, and either way, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again tomorrow.